So while the president and his lying legal team are trying to overturn the election, the president-elect Joe Biden holding a virtual meeting with 10 governors, Democrats and Republicans, focusing on the incoming administration's top priorities, the pandemic and the need for a real partnership between states and the federal government. Biden also speaking out about the consequences of the transition still being stalled.
If nothing fundamentally changes between now and beginning of February, we're likely to lose up to total of 400,000 lives, another 150,000 lives. And so it's real. Whether it's that, it gets to 360, whatever it is, it's real. And there is no excuse not to share the data and let us begin to plan. Because on day one, it's going to take us time. If we don't have access to all this data, it's going to put us behind the 8 ball by a matter of a month or more. And that's lives.
Joining me now, Gene Sperling, who is advising the Biden transition team and is a former director of the National Economic Council for Presidents Obama and Clinton. Gene, good to see you. Thanks for joining us. Really important conversation.
Thanks, Don. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So Dr. Anthony Fauci says that he hasn't spoken to Biden's team yet, but he wants to. That is a critical meeting. Actual lives are at stake, as the president-elect says here.
You know, absolutely. I'm an old man. I've been involved in transition since 1992. People are normally on their best behavior. To have this unprecedented resistance to a transition in the middle of a pandemic and an economic crisis is not just unprecedented, it's so dangerous. And, you know, President Biden and Ron Klain have made very clear that the inability to get the information to make sure that if you have a vaccine that it can be distributed could be the matter of tens, hundreds of thousands of lives. But as an economic advisor, I also want to say that the economic emergency is also immense. Do you know that on December 26th, the day after Christmas, there may be up to 12 million people who will lose their unemployment insurance? The eviction moratorium sunsets on December 31st. There could be 10, 12 million people who have difficulty paying their rent, who could now be subject to eviction, to homelessness, to being on the street after Christmas in the cold. And on small businesses, 1 in 5 small businesses are closed. And I would imagine half of them fear what can happen to them with the second wave of the pandemic. You know, there's been problem in that program, the PPP program. Can you imagine if the Biden team can't get in and get the information from Treasury and the Small Business Administration? I mean, you're talking about small businesses closing. You're talking about families being evicted. You're talking about millions of people not getting the check they need for basic expenses. So this is both a health crisis and an economic crisis, and a terrible time to have such an unprecedented obstruction of a smooth transition.
Listen, and everyone is nervous right now, especially small business owners, people who,
Sure.
you know, people who've been out of work for the past 8-9 months. It's frightening. So listen, the president-elect facing questions about a potential economic shutdown because of the surge in COVID-19. Watch this.
I am not going to shut down the economy, period. I'm going to shut down the virus. That's what I'm going to shut down.
So that's
I'll
ruled
say
out.
it again. No national shutdown. No national shutdown. Because every region, every area, every community can be different. And so there's no circumstance which I can see would require a total national shutdown. I think that would be counterproductive.
Well, I mean, it's completely opposite. Remember when we had, I think it was the Chief of Staff, Mark Meadows, or someone, one of those guys saying, we're never going to contain the virus. We're not going to ever shut it down. And Biden stressing no shutdown, but he's going to shut down the virus. We are, though, I must say, seeing schools closing because of the surge, and in many places, restaurants and businesses, you know, certain businesses, gyms remain open. Do we have our priorities straight here, Gene?
Well, look, you know, the main thing I would say, and I think a lot of economists on both sides would agree, there just isn't this trade-off between opening the economy and dealing with the coronavirus. I think that I am like tens of millions of people out there. We're not going out. into restaurants, regardless of whether they're open or not, because we're worried about our safety. So if you do not have the confidence for people to be safe, you're never going to get the foot traffic, the demand. So there's not a trade-off. If there's anything we should be learning is that you must contain the virus in order to open the economy. They are not a trade-off. It is one and the same. And I think that, and I think Joe Biden's making that very clear. And look, nobody's preventing me from going to travel or go someplace now, but most families aren't doing it because they're scared. You have to control the virus. And these small businesses, what they want is some help, as you said, Don. The PPP, the small business program, do you know when it ended? August 8th, over 3 months ago.
Yeah.
But even if, and I don't know if there'll be a stimulus, but even if there was, can you imagine with all the problems it's had, with all the failure to actually help particularly Black and brown-owned small businesses, if the Biden team can't even get into the building to get the information to see how you might get the money to the small businesses, to the states for unemployment, for the food relief, and to make sure money is going not just to the renters, but to the landlords so that nobody's being evicted or foreclosed on.
Yeah. Gene, important conversation, and we're going to have you back for more. Thank you. You be safe. And if I don't see you, have a happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
We'll be right back.